Well, it's been a year. That's right. It's been a year since I put out my first video on this channel, how to set up your winged sprint car in iRacing. And to celebrate, I've got brand new free setups for the 360 and the 410 for all the dirt tracks. So let's dive in. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brandon here. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. And like I said, it's been a year since that first video. Now, since then, things have been just awesome. I mean, it's been incredible. The year that we had an SSR, the fact that there is an SSR is just insane. Um, I had you told me after that first video had come out that I would be where I'm at right now a year later, I'd have told you were absolutely insane. But here we are, and it's been just incredible, and I've got you to thank for that. So, thank you very much. I mean, I really, really appreciate it. To go from, 0 to over 3,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel, and to have, 2,000 people in the Discord, and a couple thousand on the Facebook group, and, hundreds in our league, and, hundreds of insiders, and it's just awesome, man. So, I mean, I really, really appreciate it. Now, like I said, it's been a year, and I wanted to do something special, and so I'm gonna be showing you, we're just here at Charlotte right now in the 360, but back in December, I actually built all new free setups for the 360 and the 410. Now, I didn't announce or anything like that. I just put a link out on like Facebook, and we've had people download them, but it wasn't really known. I still get a lot of people asking me, for updated setups because of from the last ones that I put out for free. And so I wanted to put this out, show you it, give you a chance to download them, but also kind of cover, what do you do with these things? Because, I always say your driving style has a big effect on what the car is going to do, how fast it's going to be. There is no magic setup. I don't know how many times I need to say that, but there isn't. All right. Trust me, if there was, I'd have it, but there's not. At the end of the day, it's you, and you got to get the car comfortable for you. And so I'm going to show you guys, we're going to look at the setup here at Charlotte, and then I'm going to cover, kind of the adjustments you want to go through as the night goes on, and then, where you would end up with, around the feature. All right, so let's dive in. All right, so first things first, we've got the Charlotte base setup, and just like the ones that I put out before, there's going to be a base and a feature setup. The base comes with the fuel for the heat race, so you're going to want to adjust the fuel for qualifying. And then the feature should have enough fuel for the official race feature. Like I said before, always validate the fuel. Never just take my word for it. Test it, calculate it, make sure that it's got enough, okay? There's been many a times where I have done the fuel, went out, tested it myself, had more than enough, and then someone goes out, runs a race, and they're like, man, I ran out with 3 laps to go. So always double check that, okay? Please always double check that, because track state has a huge effect on your fuel. Temperature, how fast you're driving, your throttle control. If you're someone, like me, that, really likes to ease into the corner when the track gets slick, but then, drive through the corner, you're going to have a different fuel. You're going to get different fuel mileage as opposed to somebody who likes to drive in really deep and then let off, right? Or maybe if you use more wing or whatever, there's all kinds of different variables. Yes, the differences are minor, but when you start looking at it over the course of 30 laps, you could end up short, okay, with those changes or with those differences. So just please always keep that in mind. Now, tires, we haven't had any major physics changes on the sprint cars. I mean, we haven't had any that I know of. There's been some changes to the tracks. They did make some adjustments to the moisture content, how long it stays in the track. The moisture, moving down, gravity, so the bottom would be there over the top. The little tweaks like that. There's a couple of tracks that they did stuff to individually. Knoxville, for example. I believe Fairbury was another where there was some issues with slick patches, and so they kind of went in and fixed that. And so the track states have changed the most, more than the physics of the car. But also, along with that, my knowledge has grown greatly with these cars, and that has led to the setups. If you compare the setup that I put out in the initial video compared to this one here, it's very, very different. And the thought process that I go through and how do I adjust and, and build and stuff like that is different. Back then I was somebody who had a lot of knowledge of real life stuff, and I had learned things in the sim and had learned to kind of apply it. But now, definitely with the help of Motec, my knowledge of not only real life but in the sim has grown exponentially. And because of that, we have a lot of different, setups. So first up, Stagger, 12.5 inches. On the bigger tracks, 12.5, 13 inches, depending on what kind. So Lernerville and Charlotte, for example, are technically like the same size, right? They're both like 4/10 of a mile. But Charlotte, the corners are very wide and sweeping, where Lernerville, it's a lot tighter. So Charlotte, I would run 12.5. Lernerville, for example, I might run 13, depending on the track state, right? If the track's slicker, I might be at 12.5. It just depends, okay? But just kind of a rough guideline there. And then for the shorter tracks, 13.5 or 14. Fairbury, I might get up to 14, where Kokomo, I might be at 13.5 or even 13 if I'm going to be just running the top. So it just depends. But usually on a tacky track, I'm nowhere, I'm 12.5 and higher for my stagger. I get asked all the time about front stagger. Front stagger is one of those things, and if you look here, iRacing says more front stagger, more understeer during braking. I do trail brake, a lot of times. It depends on the track, but I do use a trail braking technique. Some people might call it power braking, what it basically the same thing. And so there are times I will run this. There's also times where I will run front stagger just because that will affect my left rear weight. Like if I want to get a couple more pounds on my left rear without adjusting ride heights or bar stops or bars or anything like that, you can just do that here, right? For example, we have 448, and if I go an inch of front stagger, now we're at 450, right? So I mean, it can be used a couple of different ways. Same thing on the tire pressures. Run max tire pressures on all the tires. The left front is the only one I ever really adjust. There are very, very rare occasions where I might drop the rears down a pound, and that is on super slick tracks, okay? Like really, really slick tracks. So, for the most part, I just run them maxed out. The left front, I will run 10, 11, or 12. Same principle, okay? Where if I want to adjust corner weight, right? We have 448 on the right rear. If I move this up to 12, now I've got 452. I use it as almost like a very subtle bar adjustment or spring adjustment if you think about it like that, okay? So that's what I do with the tires. Chassis side of things, for me, front toe, negative 5/16. That's what I had it at from the beginning, and it felt good. And so I just kind of start with that. I will tell you this, the more negative toe you have, right, the more stable the car is, um, you know, according to iRacing. One thing I will tell you is when the track is slick, I will raise this up in my own personal setups. I don't do that in all setups because, like I said, that's kind of a driver thing. It's minor, but since we don't have tire wear, there's really no penalty for this. Okay, if we had tire wear, it might matter, but we don't have tire wear on dirt. Even when we get the new tire model, which they're supposed to be bringing the big block tire model to all the other dirt cars, not till season 3, I believe. At least that's what I've heard. I don't know. I don't know anybody. I know people who are supposedly in the know, but then again, I don't know. So, but I will say you don't get penalized for this. There's no penalty for it. Okay, so maxing this out, whatever, it's not going to hurt you. It makes the car a little bit more stable, helps the turn in a little bit more, and that's pretty much it. Now, nose wing, 22 degrees. I've done a lot of testing with the nose wing, tried things to try to see if there's a way to improve it. I find just running it at 22 is the best thing to do. Yes, if the track is really slick and it's a small track, Fairbury, for example, maybe a Kokomo, right, where you're wanting to just like roll the bottom, you could increase that nose wing and help the car turn a little bit more. But overall, just 22 degrees, leave it alone. I mean, it's not worth messing with. If you increase this, it's going to literally change a lot of the setup because it just plants the nose. So I just leave it at 22. Top wing, once again, 24, right? Flat forward when the track is tacky. On the small tracks, you can put it at 30 and just run it forward. It will stabilize the car, give you more grip. You can run 24 on the small tracks too when it's tacky. It's really up to you. I will just usually run 30 a lot of times. It just depends on what I'm doing, or what I'm trying to do, what line I'm trying to run. But for the most part, I'll just run all the small tracks at 30 and then the big tracks at 24. Yes, you can play with the angle. If you've seen any of the numerous videos I've done on wing angle and position, I know people out there are like, oh, no, the angle's broke. It doesn't do anything, just 24 or 30. That is false. I've tested it. I've showed the data in Motec. There is an effect. It's minor, but there is an effect, okay? There is differences in the angle. So you can play with that. And then wing position, it's pretty self-explanatory, okay? Now, bars, I run a couple of different bar combinations. A lot of times, for these base setups that you're going to be getting, you're going to find that mostly the bigger tracks are going to have, the stiffer front bars and then softer in the rear. These are 10 and a quarters up front with thousands in the rear. If you look at a setup here, let's look at Fairbury, for example. I've got 10 and a quarters on the right, thousands on the left, right? So I've got tilt in the car. That just helps the car rotate more, okay? So it just depends on the track and what I'm trying to do. But for the most part, bigger tracks, that's what I do. And then the smaller tracks, I'll add some tilt. Torsion bar stops. Uh, Another thing that I have tested like crazy, jacking up the front end, you can do that. I will do that a lot of times for my own self personally. I don't like doing that all the time in setups that I'm giving away, not because it's slower or anything like that. No, it has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the fact that the more you raise the front end, the tighter the car will be. It'll keep it straighter. Now we want that in sprint cars, but also if you have the front end jacked all the way up, especially when the track gets slick and you start moving that wing back, what happens is the car will start to snowplow on you. The right front gets really, really light. There are times where in Motec, or the dynamic wheel load on the right front will be negative. It's pulling so much weight off the right front. The right front is so light because it's raised up so high that it's literally pulling the right front in the air. And what happens is if you're using the wheel and that right front's dancing around, the car will start to dart on you because that right front will, get grip, and then the car will shoot. It'll just dart all over the place. It can be really twitchy. So, you can jack the front end all the way up. It's up to you. You're going to find in these setups, I don't have that done like very often, if at all. So, like I said, it's up to you. Right front shock, I have a couple of base shock packages that I start off with in the front. A 5.3, a 5.4, or even a 6.3 on the right front. Sometimes a straight 5, a 5/5. It just depends. And then usually on the bigger tracks, this will be like a 5.3 or a 5.4, maybe a 6.3, depending on the track. And then left front, 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, sometimes a 5.4, depending on the track once again. But that's pretty much, a good starting point for the front shocks. Now on the rear, you really cannot go wrong with a straight 5 shock. You really can't. Like, you can put a straight 5 in there and never touch it, and you've got a pretty good right rear shock. Okay, I mean, it's a good starting point. It's a good one to have. You can make changes to it. I will tell you, in my own personal stuff, in the insider stuff that I do, a lot of times this shock will be a little bit different. Might be like a 4/4.5, or maybe a 4.5/4.5. But for the most part, starting with a 5/5, it's a really good starting point. Left rear, for this, the bump on this will be somewhere between a 3 to a 4.5 on the bump, and then on the rebound, we'll go anywhere from I might go as low as a 5, depending on the track, all the way up to a 9. The left rear shock is really, really important. It can make the car, do a bunch of different things. So, this is really about comfort. This left rear helps the car get winged over, obviously, and stay winged over, helps the car rotate. So, the left rear shock, once again, I can sit here and spend hours talking about nothing but shocks, and most of you are going to be lost. I am going to do a video covering shock adjustments, the biggest issues that people have with them on the rear, just so you kind of get an idea of how to adjust them and when to adjust them. But so yeah, that's the the shocks. Rear bars, thousands. Start off with them stiffer in the rear and then go to softer bars in the rear. I used to do reverse, start soft and go stiff. I will tell you this, uh, it, the stiffness of the bars is really a stability and comfort thing. I have noticed if you go to stiffer bars on a dry slick track, at least for me, I have found that the car will sometimes fall off towards the end of the race. It seems like the handling goes away. I just went through this about a week ago in our league race on Wednesday night at Knoxville, where the first half of the race, the car felt good, and then it was falling off towards the end. That race, I had 1050 bars up front and 10 and a quarters in the rear at Knoxville. So, looking back, I probably would have went softer in the rear because it seemed to have fallen off that race. But for the most part, the softer the bars, the more mechanical grip, okay? The stiffer the bars, the more stability and the more aerodynamic grip, according to iRacing. I have found that, just move the wing back until the car feels stable. Like that's it. When the track is super slick, being stable and moving the car forward is far better than, trying to have the wing forward and your foot down, because all you're doing is spinning your tires, not going nowhere. So, torsion bar stops, once again, ride heights. I have done a ton of testing on ride heights. I have done everything from, finding exact heights to testing just the torsion bar stops where you do the stops. What I will say is if you're bottoming out, raise up the car. It's pretty straightforward in terms of the lower the car, right? The more, corner and grip you're supposed to have. The higher the car, the more forward drive you're supposed to have. I have tested this. That is the case. And so really when it comes to the ride heights, for me now, one thing that I just kind of tell people nowadays is just set it where you're comfortable. It's basically it. You know what I mean? Ride heights are another one of those things that I could sit here all day long, and spend hours talking about it. And, most people at the end are just going to have steam coming out of their ears. So, what I typically will tell people is kind of look for the height. I find that, anywhere between like, 13.8 to 14 and a half on the right rear, and then, like 12.25 to 13 on the left rear, right? I mean, if it's in those zones, you're pretty good. And and then just adjust to where you get your corner weights the way you want it. A right rear dominant car is gonna, for me, the way I consider a right rear dominant car is if we have, like more than 10 pounds of right rear weight over the left rear, right? A left rear dominant car, same thing, 10 pounds or more on the left rear over the right rear. A balanced car is they're within 7 to 10 pounds, like that's what I consider. Now, keep in mind, the wing does put a lot more weight on that left rear, okay? So getting that even, with the dynamic weight, it's going to be a lot more. You need to put actually a whole lot more right rear weight. And it's like 30 pounds more, like it's quite a bit, because the dynamic cross weight compared to your static cross weight are two different things. They really are. So, once again, unless you're like really into Motec and stuff like that, it's that stuff you don't really care to know. Okay. You don't need to know, to be honest. So, you know, if the car, if the car is the car's the best way to look at it is crossweight, right? And although I don't really pay attention to the crossweight percentages, I don't care as long as I'm passing tech. For me, it's pretty simple. The more crossweight you have, it's supposed to be the freer the entry, the tighter the exit. So if you're loose on entry and you're tight on exit, then take some crossweight out. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're tight on entry and you're loose on exit, add some crossweight, right? Pretty simple. So, that's your corner weights in a nutshell. All right. Wheel spacing. Right rear on the bigger tracks, I'll start anywhere from, 1750 to maybe 18, depending on what track it is. On the left rear, 1350 or even 1375 is where I'll start, depending on the track. Shorter tracks, I usually move it in. Bigger tracks, I might move it out to 1375. And then fuel, like I said, we're at enough for a heat race. And then the gears, the gear, the best way to do the gear, if you're wanting to adjust gears, right, or if you're wanting to build your own sets, is get the iRacing setup. And I will say, like, go one or two taller, right, to start with, and see if that's good. You know, like that's it's a good way to start. For Charlotte, for example, I will qualify sometimes with a 555 if it's a super tacky track, right? This is a 10%, so it's pretty tacky. If it's starting to slick off, if it's like an official race, lately the tracks have been closer to like 15 or even 20%, I will go to a 549. And then, you know, for the heat race, I'll maybe run a 549, and then for the feature, I'll drop down to a 542. Okay, like that's what I'll do. You know, there's some tracks, Knoxville, for example, I run a 534 the whole time, right? And then if it's super slick in the feature, maybe I'll go to a 528. So it really just depends. You know, the the 360s, the range on the gears is much bigger than the 410s. 410s is pretty straightforward, but the 360s there's a lot more, you know, with the gear ratio. So like I said, if you don't really know what to do, you can look at the iRacing setup and adjust accordingly. Okay. So, anyways, that's the base setup. All right. Now, I actually turned a 13.2 with this base setup. Like I said, it is a fast base setup. It's the stuff I'm giving you is not slow or anything like that. You can absolutely take these out, race with them, and win with them. Okay. Um, I have people who do that frequently. So when you're running with them, like I said, it's just a matter of being smooth and comfortable and then getting it dialed in for you, right? If we look at how we're going to qualify here at Charlotte, right, you would run a swing lap around the top, try to get some momentum built up for your second lap, and then it's basically just like a, you know, slider line. And there you go. You know what I mean? Like, pretty straightforward. Um, Lap time 13.5, 13.3. Keep in mind, once you run on a track, even if you just run a few laps and then you sit here and you stay, like the track will actually get worse. So, so we've slowed down a little bit, but like I said, it's still pretty fast. Now, in terms of adjusting, because people ask me all the time, well, how do I adjust the cars? How do I stay ahead of the track? That is actually still the same that I talked about in last year's video, the first video I ever did, and I still use the same principles. I will go a half inch on stagger for per session, right? So if you qualify at 12 and a half, I'll go to 12 for the heat race, okay? And then if there's a consolation, right? I would, if I'm in the consolation, which, you know, I'm typically not, but if there's a consolation, I'll drop it down to 11 and a half. And then so by the time I get to the feature, I'll be at 11 inches. Like, it's pretty straightforward. Um, on the chassis side of things, a lot of times I won't even really mess with my front shocks. If I do, it's kind of the same principle. So for example, if I'm going to lighten up the rebound on, you know, the front shocks, I'll go a half a valve per session, right? Same, I mean, basically the same thing. If I'm going to increase the bump, same thing. Okay. Very rarely do I have completely different shocks on for the feature than I had in qualifying. If we actually look at the feature setup for this track, you can see the front shocks are the same. They're the same. If you look at the rear shocks, I've taken out a little bit of left rear rebound, added a little bit of right rear rebound. You know, that's it. You know, moved the right rear in, moved the left rear out, went to a taller gear, and then we've moved the wing back to -4 just to help stabilize the car with the fuel. Stagger, 11 and a half inches, right? Like, that's it. So there's really not much that you need to do. For the wheel spacing, what I will typically do is move it in, you know, a quarter, right? Maybe a half an inch. You know, if it's an official race, like we started at 1750, 1750, it's already moved in quite a bit. But, you know, looking at that, we go into 17 and a quarter, but you'll notice that I've moved the left rear out 3/4 of an inch. We went from 13, or half an inch, excuse me. We went from 1375 to 14 and a quarter. So, you know, moving the right rear in and moving the left rear out throughout the night will help keep the car ahead of the track. Decreasing that stagger will help keep the car ahead of the track. And then, you know, little adjustments with the shocks, you know, will help as well. The main thing with these cars, okay, is really the wing right? Using the wing the correct way, having the car stable with grip, and then being smooth and consistent. That's the key, right? It's not magic. That's the key. Do that and you can be fast and consistent. You really, really can. All right. So that's going to do it for this video. Now, like I said, I've got free setups for the 360 and the 410. They are updated, new free setups that you can download. You can have them. Like I said, they're free. Have them, take them, go race with them, do whatever you want with them. Don't care, right? Enjoy them, all right? But just, use them. Have fun with them. I hope they help you. That's one thing I get asked for all the time. It's pretty incredible. I rarely do I enter into an official race and somebody not recognize me and ask me for a setup. It's actually pretty cool. And these are what I give them. These are what I give them. I just had somebody last week ask me for a setup. I gave him a setup. Dude beat me with my own setup. You know what I mean? So, they're good. They're fast. They'll definitely help you, and hopefully they'll make you more comfortable and make it to where you can go out there and race with confidence, because that's the key. All right. But that'll do it. Quick, easy, simple video. I just wanted to do this. Like I said, it's been a year. It's been absolutely incredible. I cannot thank you guys enough. I really appreciate it. And I just wanted to give you these. Like I said, I put these out in December. It's been a couple of months, but there's a lot of people who didn't know I put these out. And so I wanted to do this video for that. And like I said, this next upcoming week, I'm going to be doing a bunch of different tutorials on different things. We're going to look at late models. We're going to look at mods. We're going to look at a bunch of midgets, non-wing sprinters. We're going to kind of look at everything, see things as they've been updated over the last year, like as my knowledge has grown and stuff like that. And just put out some stuff that'll help you guys. The whole point that this channel was started, that was the whole reason we started doing this, and SSR. You know what I mean? Just build a community and help as many people as possible. And so I'm going to do that this week. There'll be some other in-depth tutorials. I'm going to be looking at, I've done a couple of paint ones, but I've also learned how to do other stuff painting, thanks to, people like, Colby Cameron from, Heatwave Designs, and just a bunch of people, right? Guys over 5-6 graphics and stuff. So, just a ton of stuff that I'm going to be learning, or that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, things that I've learned and stuff like that. So anyways, that'll do it. As always, thank you very much for joining me. If you like this, you know what to do. Hit the like button. If you didn't like it, hit the dislike button. All right, and I'll try to do better next time. But, share it, all that other great stuff. And if you want to join me, I live stream every Wednesday and Thursday on Twitch, sometimes other days, sometimes Tuesday nights. It just depends on what's going on, but I live stream during the week when we do our league races. It's a ton of fun. There's a great group that comes out. You can come hang out with us and just have fun, man. So anyways, that'll do it. Thank you as always, and until next time, good luck, good racing, take care.